Hi, everybody. I'm Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live, where you'll find us airing our views here on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on Candid Frank Live, joining me is Aaron William Freeland. Hello, Aaron.
Hey, Frank, how are you?
Good. We're back to the full network.
Excellent.
All
It's
right.
been a while.
So maybe we should do a good show today.
We can
I
try.
think we should do something. Yeah, maybe we'll try doing something decent. Let's start with everybody's favorite topic today. Well, I don't know if it's everybody's favorite topic, but for a lot of Toronto sports fans, it has to be finally the Jays clinching a wild card spot. And in my opinion, I know I shouldn't say this because this is like bulletin board talk, but they got the better draw.
I personally speaking, I think they did as well. Ending up with Minnesota in the wild card round, even with all three games being played in Minnesota, I think suits the Jays better. Um,
Absolutely. And the fact is, the Jays have a better record over the year than Minnesota, something they can't claim against Tampa.
the other interesting thing to remember is as well, Minnesota only played 73 games against teams that were over 500. The Blue Jays, on the other hand, have played 93 games over the course of the season against teams that are over 500, just based on the current division that they're in. So this, I think, bodes better for the Blue Jays than it does for the Minnesota Twins.
If they don't think about those issues and go
Wow.
out there and play baseball,
Yep. Just go
don't
play
get
baseball,
inside
guys.
your
That's
own head.
all.
Don't get inside your own head.
Yep. Just play
And
baseball, boys. That's all you got to do.
but here's another thing. I believe this is true because I think I read it and was looking at their record with the Jays. And the last game they played against each other was in June.
Yeah, it's been a while since they faced each other. Now, Minnesota is also coming off a lot of injuries as well, so they aren't necessarily fully staffed. But at the same time, those players that they're getting back may not necessarily be 100% in game shape. So that is another advantage for them to.
So once I guess the Jays pitching has to come through for them. Their hitting has to come through for them. It doesn't matter. Everything we just said right now is irrelevant. The only thing relevant is get more runs across the plate than they do. That's what the Jays will have to do, and they have the tools and the ability to do it by pitching, by hitting, and by defense. So if they can at least, they might not be able to do all three really well, but if they do two out of three, I think they've got a good shot.
No,
It's
and
better
the
to
thing
do
is,
it.
the Jays have proved themselves to be resilient all the way throughout the course of the season here. And I mean, they finished the season with a better record than Minnesota did. Toronto finished at 89 and 73. Minnesota actually led the AL Central with a record of 87 and 75.
Yes.
So the playoffs for Major League Baseball are very, very confusing and hard to get your head around.
But they are fair. I like the way they do it. I think it's the best system. Um, once you accept the fact that baseball historically has not had many teams make the playoffs, start with that thought in your head because they're playing with a lot more teams in the playoffs than they've done historically this year and in the past couple of years. Very few. And what I really like is that the whole thing smacks of if your record's better, you get a better chance. Except for the one, the Achilles heel is the divisional champion, right? But the equalizer is that the divisional champion, right, plays the number 3 team on of wild card, while the two wild cards play with each other. So if you're the lowest division leader, you end up in the wild card battle. So they have to play that extra round. So in a way, that's kind of an equalizer too, which is why I really like it. When I looked at it and I thought about it, because I can't help but diagnose stuff. And my diagnosis was, hey, this is pretty good. This, like, Minnesota got lucky to be in a weak division, but guess what? They got to play in the first round of the baseball playoffs. That's your punishment. And that to me is fair. So for the most part, I like the way their system is. It's a lot fairer than other sports.
No, this is definitely true. On the surface, when you're looking at it, it does appear a little bit wonky, but the fact that they do try to level the playing field does help a little bit. It doesn't do me any comfort when I realized that we're playing in a wild card, but we finished ahead of the leader of another division.
I
You
understand that,
know?
and it's no, that goes without saying, but that's a testament to how bad that team is, and to the opposite thinking, how good the Toronto Blue Jays are. The only way to do it really fair, but they'll never do it, is just line all the teams up, one to, all on one side, and the top teams make the playoffs. The bottom teams, the bottom teams don't, and then they play against the same thing that happens in the National League. But you'll never get that kind of thing because the divisions spark a little excitement, right? Because when the Yankees come to Toronto, right, we know that that's one of the teams we have to do well against, right?
Yeah.
So that's the way it goes. So Toronto has to do well there. So anyway, my fandom as a Toronto sports fan is happy to see the Jays in the playoffs. I also hope that they don't spend such a short visit in the playoffs like they did last year when they were the favorite. They were the home team and they blew it.
Well, and there is some trepidation here for some fans as well because while the Blue Jays did do well, the fact of the matter is they didn't show up for their last game. I mean, sure they clinched. Yeah, they kind of knew they were already going to Minnesota, but down 8-0 after the first two innings. Come on, boys, you got to do something better
Absolutely.
for the fans that shelled out cash to be there.
Well, you know what?
You know,
If they weren't thinking about the game last night, you can't blame them.
no, I understand that. I've
But I
gotten ahead of
understand the
myself too.
professionalism aspect of what you're saying, right? Okay, let's talk about the Canadian Football League and the Grey Cup's gonna. I apologize. I've got a bit of a cold, so I held out that long. That was pretty good, actually. I'm surprised I didn't cough till then. The Grey Cup, American band the Green Day will headline the Grey Cup halftime show. They are one of my favorite bands, so it'll be
They
interesting.
are they are very fun to watch. Had the privilege of seeing them at Paramount Fine Food Center, formerly known as the Hershey Center, a couple decades ago. They were fantastic then. They're just coming off the heels of an agreement with the NHL where they were providing music for them as well. And now rolling on to this, um, they're going to be doing the Grey Cup in Hamilton. They're going to be following Carrie Underwood, which I think is going to be a very tough act to follow. She'll be playing the Grey Cup Music Festival before that.
Yeah, they won't be on
But
they won't be on the
no, they won't
same
be on the same
stage,
stage. It's going to be different days.
right?
But I'm very happy to see them doing the halftime. It's going to be broadcast live on TSN and Réseau des Sports. So that should be very entertaining. I think it's going to be one of the loudest nights in CFL history. So,
Rock and country
yep.
speaks to Canadians, one and all, except for those like me that no, never mind. Um, let's talk a little bit about the Roughies. The former running back George Reed died at the age of 83. George Reed, one of the greatest running backs in Canadian Football League history, he only played for Saskatchewan. He was, well, he was not only on a board with his number, he was in the stands watching every game.
No, that gentleman was an absolute delight for those that had a chance to see him play. All-time rushing yards leader was 16,116 and 134 rushing TDs when he retired back in 1976. So the year after that I was born. There is actually a documentary film called 34 that's going to be released very shortly about him as well. Um, 13 years in the CFL is nothing to sneeze at. That is a very long career and based on his numbers, a very illustrious career. He did a lot for the community, did a lot of charity work. So fantastic. Unfortunate that he's now gone.
Yeah, and when you consider football as a sport that most, on average, players play maybe 4 or 5 years. We know there are ones that play a decade, and we don't know the ones that didn't make it after 1 year because we don't see them anymore. But it is that kind of sport. So the Ticats beat the Stamps, and Schultz came in to relieve and to push the Ticats over the finish line.
Yep, he threw 2 touchdown passes. They finally managed to nail down a playoff spot. So that is at least something. They'll now have an opportunity to fight for the chance to play in front of their hometown crowds for the Grey Cup for the second time in 3 years, I
Yep,
believe, Frank.
yep,
So,
you're right.
yeah, that'll be fun for them. That'll be fun for the fans. Hopefully,
Irony
they'll
of
put on a good
irony,
show.
irony of irony. They won't be the home team in if they don't pass the Alouettes. They won't be the home team in the semifinal. They won't be in the home team because Toronto's already clinched it, but they could be the home team in the Grey Cup.
which is really interesting. A really interesting situation to find themselves in.
It's something to work for. It's something that'll motivate them. And pretty soon, I think the Cat fans won't be afraid to brag about their team. I notice a sense, the Cat fans are still not sure. Those broken hearts that they've had over the past few years have not healed properly, or haven't had enough time to heal. But maybe they'll rally behind their team with a kind of voracious appetite and fandom, and a little bit of conceit, right? Because that's what the Cat fans are, right? And they don't have that they don't have that swagger right now. I don't hear the swagger. I don't see the swagger. Maybe this will help bring it on, and it's always fun to watch Cat fans go nuts. It's awesome. Hope they enjoy the next part of the run, and of course, then we're talking about the Owls and the Red Blacks. The Red Blacks couldn't do it again this year. They lose 32-15 to the Owls, and the Owls basically are saying we're in the playoffs. See you later, alligator.
Yeah, I mean, when you start off the way that the Red Blacks did, with about half a dozen turnovers and spotting the Owls at 22-0 lead, chances, I don't care how good your defense is, I don't care how good your offense is, the chance of coming back from a 22-0 deficit is slim, no matter what league you're playing in. Um, so
Yeah.
they were 22-0 heading into the fourth quarter. I mean, what can you do about that?
If you
You know,
can't fix what you got you there, you ain't gonna fix it coming out of it. So that's the only problem. So um, the Red Blacks, just another year where their fans are going to be disappointed. Well, here's hoping that they put things together. They end up with a quarterback that they can believe in, count on, and win some games for them. It looked good, and then started looking really bad for them this season. They looked like they might be able to challenge for a playoff spot. They were unable to do it, and we're seeing the biggest reason is they're just not ball secure, and they need a quarterback to lead them, and they just don't have it. Speaking of leading quarterbacks, a kid named Adams in BC defeated the Roughies 33-26.
Yeah, Vernon Adams had himself a fantastic game. Same with Keon Hatch and Alexander Hollins. Those guys put on a dynamite show. The good news is, for the second time in 2 seasons, BC now actually gets to host a home playoff game. So, with that 33 to 22, 33, sorry, to 26 win over the Roughies on Friday at BC Place, that means that their fans get to enjoy a little more football.
And it could be a playoff matchup.
Yeah.
Right? So it could be that. Speaking of playoff matchups, there was one at the Grey Cup between the Argos and Bombers. The Argos won that. So you could say this was the revenge game for the Blue Bombers. Were they very vengeful? The Argos brought in a quarterback that never started in the Canadian Football League and put him in, and he proceeded to score 2 touchdowns in the first possessions. And, so he looked okay. And the 31-21 score, I don't think it was even that far apart. I think it was even closer than that. And the Argos accomplished what they wanted to accomplish, and that is get some reps for their backup quarterbacks. They even brought Jones in at the end. So Scott, sorry, they brought Scott in at the end,
Yeah.
and so they did what they needed to do. I know it bothers fans. I might even bother the Winnipeg fans who didn't get to see the best Argo team play their team. But you know what? The reality is the Argos don't have another bye week this year. So they've earned the right to create their own bye weeks, kind of.
Yeah, and again, this is that two-word phrase that you absolutely adore, Frank. Load management. I think that
Yeah.
the Argonauts are kind of engaging that again. Bodies get beat down. There are a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Idiotic stories that got put out by supposedly legitimate
Oh my goodness. Oh my
sportscasters, including
goodness.
one that Kelly was going to be
I read
leaving
that
for the
one.
New York Jets. Did you hear the one, or did you hear the
Oh,
one about where he punched a coach in the locker room? Or how about the one where, like, it's
well,
like, come on
if he
now.
punched a coach in the locker room, I missed it, and I'm in the locker room after the game.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I don't put much stock in a lot of that. So when I don't hear it from
What
you,
about what about the one he was benched because they lost because he threw 2 interceptions the game before? They
I
still won.
I'd heard that one. I'd also heard that they were holding him out pending contract negotiations with the New York Jets because he was going to be replacing Rodgers. So that's
And
uh,
some people actually buy into that stuff.
it's a shame, really. It's a
Yeah, it
shame.
is what it is. All right, let's go over the National Hockey League. Let's start with the Edmonton Oilers, and let's talk about Brandon Suter.
So it's been a long career. Brandon Sutter has decided that after signing his PTO and giving it one last go with the Edmonton Oilers, he's going to be hanging it out. He's 34 years old. They released him from his PTO on Sunday. He's 6'3", 188 pounds, had one assist in two preseason games with them. He was drafted 11th overall by the Carolina Hurricanes in 2007 and spent 4 seasons there before going to the Penguins and the Vancouver Canucks. Um, Now, he had been dealing with symptoms of long COVID, which means he didn't play with the Canucks in 2021, 2022. And he was not re signed by the team for the 2022 2023 season. So he was trying to catch up on that. But I do wish him all the best. 770 games over 13 seasons, 289 points, and 149 penalty minutes.
You know, my head hurts. You know why my head hurts?
Hmm.
He used to watch his dad and uncles play in the National Hockey League when they were his age.
Yeah.
Boy, one feels really old. And I got to tell you, he's 34 years old, folks. We were watching the Islanders win Stanley Cups. He was a little tight on the ice, about 3 feet, 2.5 feet high. So good for him retiring. I hope he enjoys his retirement. It's too bad about the long COVID. It's something a lot of people have to deal with, and I hope he, like you, I wish him the best too, and hope he gets some relief from that situation. Speaking of relief, well, it was a relief for the Leafs to play the Habs, and in the middle of playing 3 games with them, they won 2-1, and then they won 3-1. And you know, their best game was the game with the least stars in it. Did you notice that?
Yeah. It's interesting how preseason plays out. Players that may not necessarily get an opportunity during the regular now have their chance to shine. Didn't take long for Matthew Nyes to prove that him being in the lineup in the playoffs last year wasn't a fluke. Um, so glad to see that. Nick Robertson had himself a hell of a game. Um, you know,
Whenever I see him with the puck skating towards the defender, I can't believe how easily he gets by them. I can't believe mine eyes. I just can't.
he's very, very hard to track down on the ice, and Nyes, Minton, and Robertson have all been absolutely fantastic to see. Caden Gooley apparently has been getting talked up around Montreal circles because he apparently made Austin Matthews look like an idiot by deking him out of his boots. But, it's clinging to faint hope here, I think, is what the Habs are doing. But they have another game tonight starting in another 43 minutes. So we'll have to see how that goes for them.
Third in a row.
Third in a row. Third time's a charm.
Well, hockey's back.
Thank goodness.
Okay, let's go from hockey to news. What's this in Canada about homeowners brace for mortgage payments? What's up with that?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people who bought homes in the past few years have been getting ultra low interest rates when it comes to their mortgages. That's led to a huge spike in real estate demand. Now, with interest rates increasingly expected to stay higher for longer, a lot of the homeowners who locked in low interest rates like years ago are bracing themselves for financial pain as their mortgage comes up for renewal. I was fortunate in that I managed to lock mine down. I believe it was last year when we renewed for another 5 years. So hopefully we'll be over that hump by the time that comes up again. But yeah, we're looking to see average payments increase anywhere from between 14 to 25% next year compared with costs when I locked mine in April and May of 2022. So
well, the problem it's a double whammy for those kinds of people, because what's going to happen is the interest rate will end up being higher, the mortgage rate will be higher, and of course costs, inflation has been really brutal over the past couple of years. So it's a double whammy for them. Okay, let's talk about ghost hotels need to go.
So there was a resident in Belgravia, Alberta, that is questioning why it took 3 years of complaints about an Airbnb next door to them to get the problem short-term residential unit shut down. This individual and his partner only realized that the half duplex next to the house was divided into 2 Airbnb units, one for the top 2 floors, the other for the basement, after they moved in. They've had to deal with issues like loud parties, rotting garbage, cars blocking off their front driveway, and a parade of strangers coming and going at all hours of the day and night. To say the situation has been bad would be an understatement. It affected the livability in their own home and their neighborhood. Uh, and the fact that these Airbnbs seem to operate bulletproof. 3 years is what it took to finally get it shut down, and that's completely unacceptable if you're going to be living there.
Here where I live, they have you can have an Airbnb, but you have to be living in the house at the same time. In other words, the homeowner has to be here to do that.
I think that's actually a very good compromise, because it is technically speaking supposed to be a bed and breakfast, which means that the owners are supposed to be there to serve breakfast to the individuals when they get out of bed. That
And if
is the
there are any
idea behind
complaints,
a bed and breakfast, as opposed to being absentees. You know?
and if there are any complaints, the people who own the property can be complained to.
Yeah, directly.
Absolutely. Well, it is what it is, I guess. Let's talk about Saskatchewan, and Saskatchewan's minimum wage rises to $14 an hour.
Yeah, that's right. It went up from $14 from $13 to $14 on the 1st of October. Unfortunately, it's still the lowest rate in Canada, but costs are also slightly lower out in Saskatchewan, so it's not all that bad. The problem is, um, the real estate prices are keeping pace with the rest of Canada, even if their wages are not. So you've got four people that are trying to share a $1,600 a month apartment, and it's hard to make it work because you need at least $2,500 a month.
We've got a minute. Pick your story. The last one of the ones we have
Sure.
now.
There's a new senator sitting in for the state of California after Dianne Feinstein passed. It's a lady by the name of LaFonza Butler, who is the first openly gay and black person to serve. Not only that, she's a labor unionizer and has a lot of connections to Emily's List out in Washington, D.C. So Dianne Feinstein passed. She's getting replaced by somebody that's guaranteed to make the conservatives mad. Thank you, Gavin Newsom, for blessing us with this.
Mm-hmm. She's also the only black woman senator in the Senate right now.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this, Aaron.
Hey, thanks for that, Frank. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll see you on Wednesday. Thanks to Aaron. For Aaron William Freeland, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live. Aaron, Mondays, Wednesdays, and soon to be Fridays. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank Live, other news and sports programming we offer, please check out spanglishworld.ca. Please don't forget Candid Frank Live on YouTube. It's Candid Frank Live 1030. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, and download it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Ciao for now.